for like over 10 years, and just recently are in the process of changing to Erskine Arts. And Ali, who started it, he comes from like kind of design background and really strong on film and composition, and he absolutely hates a busy background. So he's going to be devastated that I'm filming against this wall, because the shot, as you can see wee bits of pictures, you can see Batman's chest and then Paul Stanley's wee face. He's not going to like it. He just films against white all the time.
White,
you know?
yeah. Feng shui.
Totally. Hello and welcome to a special episode of Erskine Arts Vinyl Countdown. As I said earlier in the first video, this is a kind of celebration of, well, my own personal albums of the year, and these ones are all Scottish just by chance. And this one is a bit, this is a bit more meaningful to me because this is actually my absolute album of the year, and I'm really grateful that the guys are making time to join. So the album we're going to be talking about today is by a band called Cloth, and I'm joined by Rachel and Paul from Cloth tonight to have this chat. So I'll pass over and the guys can have a quick introduction, and then we'll just have a quick chat about how amazing your album is, pretty much.
That sounds good. Well, my name is Paul, and I play guitar in Cloth. That's about all I do, really.
I'm Rachel. I sing and I play guitar in Cloth.
Yeah.
And you're you're a three-piece.
Yeah.
We are.
Claire Gallagher is the. I don't want to say drummer, because it's like, I think we'll get into the album fully, but feels not enough to say drummer, like percussionist at the very least. So, but Claire, I suppose, would be I don't know. She refers to herself as drummer, but
Claire,
So.
drummer, percussion, like
aye. And I think like that's the kind of thing for me with this album. After the first listen, I think I always try and have that. I don't know how you when you hear a new record, you try and I try and sit back and listen to it as that artist intended it to be listened to. That you're not bringing anything to the table other than just a quiet environment in your ears. And it's after that you can kind of start to sit down on it and pick things out. And the things for me are like the real fundamental things that you talk about in great music. And, when you talk about songwriting and arrangement and production. And this is a record that feels... I haven't heard anything else this year that's even come close. Each of those things in equal measure are just... I can't imagine them being stronger. And made all the more impressive by other things that I'll talk about later on, about how clean the lines are and how minimal it feels, but how massive it feels at the same time. When you're writing the album, when you're putting it together, how did that come about with the three of you working together?
Well, it's actually Paul and I that kind of, we sit down, and it's Paul and I that'll write the songs, and then once they're at the stage where we're going to be like kind of looking at percussion and filling out the kind of percussive side of things, we'll bring them to Claire, and we'll have lots of band practices and just iron things out. But really, like, the process of writing songs is Paul and I sitting down together for just hours and hours, just refining things, like bouncing ideas off each other, stripping, I think, building up things, and then we end up stripping them back. It's just it's a kind of cool process we've got into, where we just like to see, we like to kind of reduce things to really minimal elements. And there's like a couple of things, or quite a few things, that we get excited about. I think it's syncopated rhythms and parts that kind of interweave and complement. I think we're kind of like, we both used to listen to like a lot of like kind of metal and stuff when we were like younger and in high school, and I think like the interesting kind of rhythms and syncopation, and it's always kind of stuck with us. Did you say?
I'd agree. Yeah, I think that sums it up. I think like just lots of kind of sitting down together with the guitars and maybe beginning with like one sort of central idea. Like for example, the song "Trip" has got a riff in it that kind of repeats throughout the entire song. My part, I don't really vary it. The only thing that varies really is like the time signature. So when you've got kind of like a bedrock like that, it's quite fun to sort of see what you can come up with that'll complement it, that'll change it, that'll sort of emphasize different parts of the rhythm, and then work your sort of lyrics and vocals around that as well. I think, yeah, Rachel's sort of spot on when she says we get excited about like rhythms and things like that, because I think when you've got like a good guitar line that you're happy with, that's when we start thinking about drums and like how we can sort of take it up a level and sort of build a groove where somebody's going to actually think like, oh yeah, that's something I quite like to listen to.
Yeah, like bob your head along.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting there to be a wee bit of metal influence in there. That's quite cool. What kind of metal bands did you listen to? So do you not listen to metal at all now? You kind of patched it.
I'm going to be honest.
You've mega patched it. I still dip my toe every now and then. I like. There's a couple of bands that I still kind of hold a candle for. Like I used to listen to a lot of this Swedish band called Opeth that I quite like.
I love them, man.
Yeah, they're a fantastic band. I saw them in Glasgow years ago, and like we had to go and get a bus, so we missed the last two songs. I was telling folk about it, and they were like, "Oh, that's all right." And then you're like, "You don't understand. That's like 40 minutes of Opeth." And I quite like, not quite like, I love Mastodon as well. I don't really listen so much to their newer stuff, but like the kind of proggier end, I think that's maybe what we ended up quite liking. And within that, you've got a lot of incredible instrumentation and brilliant arrangements with those types of bands. And then bands like Lamb of God, who are absolutely like masters of these intricate rhythms wrapped up in these huge chunky riffs, you know. So I think that's where we kind of, maybe the seed of like that still sort of pollutes our music a bit.
I love that, and I wouldn't have thought about metal, but it kind of makes sense, I guess. Some of the things that I love about the album is the rhythmic feel that it has, and I don't know there's times I struggle how to articulate the way that songs make me feel, but like in some of the tracks you feel like, you know, you're maybe like you're in a free fall and the rhythm is just so open. And then it's like like when you're walking maybe and you catch your pocket on a door handle, and then it snaps you into something. And there's points on the record that feel that way, that there's just this wee journey that you're on, and then the rhythm just locks you in, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's amazing. And it has, I suppose, a kind of, you know, maybe Meshuggah feel like that for me sometimes. Rhythmically, you know. I get that now.
Big fan of Meshuggah. I love Thomas Hack's drums are just, I've just spent many hours on YouTube just looking at him like doing rudiments, and kind of like, I just love that guy. And remember we used like that, is there a track Meshuggah have got called like is it Bleed? And it's like got amazing rhythm. It's like
punishing.
Punishing. Yeah, that's the word for it. Yeah.
This is great. I never get to talk about metal to so Ali and Jason that work at Erskine Arts. They like, Jason likes some metal, but like I like black metal, and they just laugh at me and they think it's dreadful and they don't want to talk about it. So this is really nice. I don't even know if this will make it into the cut. Just a wee chat about metal. But hey, it's the rhythm. I think on this, the way that melody and rhythm interweave. I'd spoken to when you guys had messaged back and said that you were free for a chat. I'd really excitedly messaged Sandra, you know, Sandra at Tiny Changes. I was like, oh my god, man, this is amazing. And she had said like something like, won't be long before they go into Cocktail Twins chat.
Aye.
So I
Yeah.
had that coming, and that, and I didn't make that connection either until she had said that about, the moments of real ethereal quality, um, but I got that afterwards. But I'm glad that it's veered into metal. But that the interweaving of rhythm and melody is something really interesting, and for me on the kind of listener end, is at the real heart of the album. And I guess that's why, for making Claire's introduction, it's percussion, and it's so beautifully and tastefully done, and I guess it kind of is in line with how you're describing maybe the songwriting process and the studio process, that you have this song that you have, and then how much can you take away to kind of reveal the heart of the song, and that where there are moments of percussion where it drives you like that, getting caught and caught in free fall, and that the rhythm is right there, but really sits back and doesn't play. It has that kind of I'm a big fan of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and there's real moments there where you're caught because Thomas doesn't play just as well as when he does play, and that for me really is a massive part of this album.
Definitely.
And I mean, as I said, the beginning, the songwriting, arrangement, and production, those are the things. The arrangements, do those just come together naturally when the three of you are in the room and you're talking about the many rehearsals that you have, or do you come in with a tight arrangement in mind?
We'll come in with a tight arrangement in mind, definitely. The point where we go and we meet with Claire is usually
when we've got like everything kind of mapped out already.
Yeah, it's all quite mapped out, and it's just really kind of getting the feel and like locking in live together, and looking at areas where we can really make the rhythm kind of complement the parts and bounce off the parts and stuff, like. Yeah.
I think like one of Claire's like strengths, I'd say, like, and why we work so well together, is that she's like very kind of respectful of what we try to do with rhythms and things like that, and she's like super hard working when it comes to like learning stuff on the sample pad and all that. Like the song, going back to that track Trip I mentioned, like there's like 5 different kits on that sample pad that she's sort of flicking between, and like she does it brilliantly. But yeah, like I think the rhythm kind of just it's probably one of the things we think about at the beginning and then really flesh out sort of towards the end of the writing process. And then I think that kind of, like we don't really get bogged down too much in the middle, because it ends up, when we're thinking about arranging things, like it really begins to, it's guitars we're thinking about and atmospherics and keyboards and stuff like that. We don't use a great amount of keyboards, but that's something that we're kind of experimenting a wee bit more with now and for future stuff, I think. So, but yeah, that's kind of like the process a wee bit.
It would be nice to hear how you both felt about this album, the recording process. I think all we've done so far is me tell you how amazing I think it is and what I think. It'd be really nice to hear how did it feel, because I suppose I was quite late to this record, so for everyone and all the pedants that might be like, oh, this album came out last year, I think it was November 2019, wasn't it? That still counts for this year for me. But I didn't hear the album until it was the middle of January, I think.
Right.
But I think I figured that you had a record out before because your name had been around, and it, so I wondered maybe in the writing of this and the recording of this, was there a pressure having a degree of hype before you've even tracked your first album? So it'd be really interesting to hear about that from your perspective.
Yeah, like it was a really interesting process doing the album, because we did have a few songs out before we went in to make the record. Like a few of the songs that we had out ended up on the record, but there was a kind of gap where we released them and then went back in to sort of flesh the whole thing out. And it was a fairly intense process we worked really closely with an engineer called Derek O'Neill, who he's plays with King Creosote, plays keyboards with King Creosote.
Oh, amazing.
And and he's just like he's a lovely, patient man. He's just like the best person that you could hope to work with on a project like this. And so it was just a lot of sessions, a lot of mixing sessions that went on very, very late into the night a lot of the times. So
it wasn't like a block either. It wasn't like, I think we booked like a good amount of days, and then we ended up kind of like going back in again.
Yeah,
and like it
needing
just
another day and stuff.
Everything kind of took longer than we expected, so it's a real learning kind of process as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was like a point where we were sort of, things were kind of coming together, but we were like, we can't turn it in like this.
Yeah.
We need like 3 more weeks. If we can have 3 more weeks to finish it, then we'll make the album and we'll turn it out the way that we want it to be.
Yeah.
And then that 3 weeks was punishing. It was just like I look back on it very fondly now, but it was just like a borderline hallucinatory kind of just like we did like a kind of thing for Tim Burgess for the Say Award stuff, where we like a listening party, and we kind of went into the album and some stories about the recording and stuff like that, and we talked a lot about the kind of the big mammoth mixing sessions and stuff like that. So it was quite fun to kind of revisit it now. And I think now we're both kind of there's been enough time that we're like, let's get back in and do that again, and make the second one. But it was intense, but it was kind of like, you wouldn't really want to be doing anything else with your nights and mornings,
And I can hear that in the record, I suppose. Like it feels like this. Like it's one of those albums. It feels like an experience, and one that you learn more about the more time you spend in that environment. Like Astral Weeks is a really big record for me. And that's something. I mean, I'm 37 now, and I heard that, I think I was 14 or 15, and I'd be surprised if a week has gone by in those intervening years where I haven't listened to it once. And I feel like there's still secrets in there to be revealed, and I feel like that. I feel like this Cloth record has the potential to do that as well. The more time I spend, the more things I understand about it, the more things I hear. But I also understand that requires absolute precision on your end. So what feels really light and floaty, and that those things that interweave and that are delicate, it's really like this solid steel frame with really lovely silk scarves over it. But when you take them off, there's this really rigid thing underneath. So you can really hear that the effort that you must have all gone to in the studio.
I love that. That's such a good description.
I'm going to steal that for a press release, Craig.
You can take it.
I love it.
I think it feels like that.
I think that's a lovely way of describing it, and it feels pretty apt. Like, we can hear, like, all the sort of stuff we were going for when we listened to it back. But it's nice to kind of now enjoy it with that degree of detachment from the intense kind of, I guess, process of making the thing.
Like for a long time when we'd have to listen to them back for like getting them ready for live or whatever, or just when like friends would put them on and be like, oh, your songs, and like your songs come up on Spotify or something, my whole body would tense up so much. I'd have to leave the room, because I think just we were in this really long, prolonged state of like just trying to refine and like, and I think I was just I was so critical of them and it took a long time to get out of that kind of headspace. But I definitely I'm at the part where like a year on I can listen to them and enjoy, and there's just like a mild bit of like tension.
I guess that's the thing, that that really exacting ear and an exacting eye looking over everything. You don't get something like this without that effort and that process going in. But it must be really challenging in the midst of it. But glad that you're out the other side and you get to hear some of the stuff that we get to hear and the way that we hear it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because even like the idea of it being so, I think like each song in and of itself is so wonderfully composed, but the album feels like the album flow and the structure, like, you know, obviously track listing is a so massively important to a record's impact.
Yeah.
But this record feels as composed as any of the songs do. There's this real movement throughout the entire album. That's you know, so the whole thing, the attention to detail across it all, was that something that you found in the studio, or did you design that before you went in to start tracking it?
That I can actually, I've got a bit on my wall just like behind the camera there of the like how we wrote the running order, and I can remember we wrote that in the kind of 3/4 of the way through mixing stage. Maybe I think we didn't want to or we didn't actually think about the running order until it got to that stage. When the songs started coming together a bit more, and I think it was easy to write as well. I think there was only a couple of drafts and we landed in that because things do just flow in. There's like, you were just like that, we'll work with that and that should flow into that quite nicely.
I can remember spending a bit of time in iTunes kind of just putting the demos next to each other and sort of seeing maybe what worked best, and then when we hit upon the running order that we went with, it seemed to work. It seemed to be like what we wanted, and it seemed to really flow well, as you say. I think we were absolutely delighted that was the case, because sometimes when you're really, really focused on like one thing, you kind of think, how does this even sound in comparison to other things? Is there any continuity there? Does it flow well? Yeah. So, it was very nice feeling to like know that it did work together in the end. I think
for the record's release, so it came out on Last Night from Glasgow, which I think we were in a chat about record labels recently, and this is a label that I bring out as an example for people. How does it feel to be part of that? Because it just seems like a dream to have a record label that seems is focused on the artist, you know, and it seems a lovely place. How does that feel? Was that something that you knew you were bringing the album there? Did it work out later?
When we first spoke to Ian from Last Night from Glasgow, that was the plan from the beginning. Really, it was to release the 4 songs that we had recorded, and then penciled in kind of a date for releasing an album together. So there was maybe like I don't know how it wasn't like a 2-year plan or anything like that, but it was just like release an album in 2019 is how I remember the conversation going. So and we pushed it back to November. Probably the latest you could like release an album in any year, like November.
I think that is a good thing about Last Night from Glasgow. They have a great focus on the album as opposed to like, I think there's obviously loads of different ways artists can go around about releasing music now, and there's something quite exciting about like a sort of continual burst of like singles and things like that, and being able to kind of chart progression and all that stuff. But I also just love listening to an album as a core piece of work, and like they're really focused on their artists doing that. So I think that's one of their benefits, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing place for us, and Glasgow's always been good for that. I think, you know, there's always been a really lovely core at the Glasgow music scene, and this just feels like another development of that. It's going to be really interesting for us all to watch and see how that grows and what comes of it. I suppose now the thing that I'm most excited about is hearing the songs from this live. So I've got a ticket for the show in July for Tuts. Man, I was straight away, you know, for release, getting the tickets sorted, patched work for that 5 minutes and getting it sorted. So I'm really, and I've not been to Tuts for ages, man. I can't remember the last time I saw a show in there, and I'm really excited to see what this feels like, a live environment. How are you guys feeling about getting back to live music and having a show in Tuts for this?
Yeah, like really excited. we've never played Tuts before. We've seen lots of bands play over the years. It's actually been a wee while as well for me though, since I've been in.
Right.
But it's like such an iconic venue, and it will be our first kind of headline show of that size. And we had a little, it's been like, what was it? It was since March was our last show this year. And last month we were invited to do like a kind of live stream concert for Stirling, the Toll Booth kind of series they were doing. Yeah. And that was like, we had to get together for a band practice before, and it was so fun to just be in the same room together again.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can't wait to start playing live again.
Yeah, same.
It's funny because I was, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say.
I think I was a bit kind of almost apprehensive because it had been so long.
I think that was, yeah.
And there was like a fairly steady stream of live performances in 2019. And then, just like went down to London, played an amazing show for Hugh Stevens. He does a sort of series at this bar that's owned by that label Heavenly called The Social. And he got us down for that, and it was a brilliant gig. So it was, in a way, it was a lovely one to sort of to bow out on for however long it was, however long it's going to be. But yeah, just like having not played for so long, I think I was a wee bit nervous even when we did the Toll Booth thing. But as soon as we started playing with Claire again, it was like,
it kind of like ignited that excited feeling again.
Yeah. And it was like, oh man, I want to get out on the road. I want to do everything, you know.
I know. All the boring kind of like service stations kind of travel monotonous side of it. I really miss now.
Yeah, that's our bread and butter. Like when we're just smashing up motorways with Claire and just going to service stations and like blasting tunes in the van, that's the stuff that I think we're missing quite a lot.
You're never so psyched about spending like £3 on a can of Coke than you are at a service station on your way to London or Manchester or whatever. There's outside of this album, have you thought about the next record? Have you thought about writing? Have you started writing songs for the next record?
Yeah, we've started writing for the next record. We've been into the studio again. We have a couple of songs that we're kind of in the editing stages of at the moment, and then kind of just see like the next few months continuing to write more, trying to build up another volume of material. The
plan would then be to release some new music maybe around kind of late spring, summer time, with the idea of getting the record out later in the year. So don't know exactly when it's going to be yet, but we'll be putting out a record in 2021 hopefully.
Nice. That's pretty good. Thanks for that. This being the Cloth record being it is my favourite album of the year. The only other record that came close for me was the new Perfume Genius album.
Oh my God,
I don't know if did you hear? I love that. He's amazing, man, and the new record is his strongest in a while. Do you have a favourite album of the year on the spot? Is there any album that you would point to as your favourite record of 2020?
2020.
2020.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
See, I'm a bit bad with new music. I just kind of keep listening to old things and sort of view it as like there's so much stuff I haven't really discovered yet, and I get lost in kind of like those kind of wormholes. But I'm not sure about album. I know that I was pretty bowled over by that new Arab Strap track, the turning of our bones one. When that came out, it was just this big sort of 5-6 minute production with incredible chords and just like the swell up to the end with that kind of like big kind of chorus thing it ends on. Like that one did it for me for sure. What about you?
I can't actually think. I think I've not been listening to albums as much this year. I think 2020 has been a bit more of a TV year maybe. Like, I couldn't help it. I needed to distract myself. And another thing as well, when we're writing, I actually do not like to listen to music, because I'll find that I'll suggest melodies and they'll come really quickly, and then I'll live with them for a little bit, and I'll realise that it's just something I've listened to, like, and things kind of tend to stick in my head, so I need a wee bit of distance, so I have been doing that. When I think of like an album that I really enjoyed recently, I think it was a 2019 release, but the Caroline Polachek album was like, I was like blown away by that. I was just loving absolutely every song. I think it's something about like the vocal performances. It's quite varied as well, and like the styles of the, like, there's kind of different genres in there as well. And I was loving that. It was so good.
That's good.
So it has been a tricky year for albums. Like, it's been a tricky year to pinpoint. Did this album come out in 2020? You know, like, it's just been such a nebulous. But there has been like particular. There's been tracks that I've heard. Do you know that band? They're called Caroline. I think they've released one 12-inch single, and they just released a 4-track cassette. They were due to play The Old Hairdressers. I think it was March. I'll send you a link to the track. Like, it's just the 12-inch, just 2 tracks on it, and mostly instrumental. And I'm so blown away. It's really sparse and really hot. But it seems like it's kind of, I get that it's been a year for maybe just a track coming out here or there, and that might be that maybe artists haven't felt it's a year to, I guess when we all went into lockdown, and there was this kind of general chat about, it's a great time for creativity, we can get all this work done that we wouldn't get done, and then you realise that you didn't feel necessarily capable or inspired to do it, but there have been some really strong tracks that seem to have come out because of that.
That just jogged my memory there, Craig, about an album, and again I'm pretty sure this is 2020, but the new Caribou record was one that really bowled me over. I don't know if you've heard that.
I've not heard that.
Oh, it's really good. It's what's it called?
Can I get on that?
I think it's called like Suddenly or something like that. But I just, pretty much every track's really, really good. And I think it was one of those, every now and then I reckon I listen to a record that gets me really fired up about doing music and kind of just trying to forge a career in music. And it's when you listen to a record like that and you hear kind of the creative possibilities of really going for it. That was probably my record. If it came out in 2020, it's my record of 2020. Right.
We'll just take it. I mean, I think generally in the ballpark the past couple of years.
We'll look it up, and it ended up coming out in 2011 or something.
I see, like, I've been doing that, I guess. A lot of the records I bought this year, I feel like I've bought a lot of like reissues and box sets and buying things again that I've already bought in another format. Like, I probably haven't bought so much new stuff. I think I've bought like 3 replacements box sets, I think, this year.
There was a new I saw one. Was it the Pleased to Meet Me box set or something like that came out?
Yes.
It's really
I was good,
is it? I might pick that up actually, because I absolutely adore the replacements. I've got the box set. I'd love to get some of their stuff on vinyl. I've only got it on CD, but they're just like the most sort of endlessly inventive kind of punk band, aren't they?
Yeah,
so good, man.
It's worth picking up the Pleased to Meet Me. I think that one, I think there's like one 12-inch and 3 CDs in it, maybe. That one there. And their packaging's really nice. They done look at the CDs are like inset. It's really cool because they done that for Dead Man's Pop when they brought that out. And for Record Store Day they done, is it called Incarcerated Live, and it was is it Milwaukee or Michigan, a really amazing live show. They open with Alex Shelton, and it's, like, I think for a lot of the replacement stuff it takes them a while to get going. But this is just out the gate. They're all firing, and they're totally. And it's just that perfect point where they all have where they're all just drunk enough, but not too drunk, and it seems to have just hit the stage at the right time. But it's been a lot of that for me this year, buying those reissues and other records. But I'm really glad to be able to have sat down with you guys tonight to get some chat, 'cause it's been such a big record for me this year, and I think a year that for all of us who love music as deeply as we do, it's been even more important this year to have albums that you can kind of hang on to, that can take you somewhere else even for a minute. And this record is definitely one of those. For me, it was the most important one of this year. So
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks for spending those extra 3 weeks having a bit of a nightmare about putting it together, but I'm glad you done it.
You're welcome.
And I suppose a shout for anyone who hasn't bought the Cloth album. I think there's still some left in black vinyl, I think, isn't there?
Yeah,
Most of them are sold out, I reckon.
Yeah, I think it's just black now. Yeah.
Just black.
Classic black.
Classic black.
That's it. So you should probably just go along to the Last Night from Glasgow online store and order a copy for yourself and one for your pals probably as well. Not a bad move. But thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking the time, and thanks for working through all the tech difficulties at the beginning. I feel so bad.
Don't feel bad, no. It was a wild ride.
I think the setup is maybe about the same length as the podcast recording. But thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Paul and Rachel.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been lovely chatting to you, Craig. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.